So what do I do to get started?
You're on right now.
We're live.
Mm-hmm. And then just to control that, you.
Well, we're quietly recording. What time is it? Are we, how many minutes to go? Good afternoon, everybody. This is Steve Pappin, and I'm here today with Phil Forbes, bringing you the November webinar from the Realtor Affiliate Committee. Wonderful group of folks. This is my first year on that committee, and it has been a great experience. I've met all kind of interesting people. I would encourage you to join us for 2016 in a room full of leadership with attorneys, real estate practitioners, lenders, builders, appraisers, house inspection professionals. Just a great group, bringing you things of value over the course of 2015 and up to today, where we will bring you today's webinar, which we call Preparing for the FHA Appraisal, Visiting with Protocol and Change. 2015 has been a very eventful year on the appraisal side of our profession. In addition to Fannie and Freddie changes, FHA revised all of their handbooks, several mortgagee letters, and incorporated that information into the new handbook 4000.1. So we will visit a little bit with that today. There we go. Again, my name is Steve Pappin. Phil is the chairperson of this committee and has had great input of the chairperson of the webinar committee and has input on the entire year of information. And by the way, today is the final planned 2015 webinar. The goals of today's webinar are to provide general information about the appraiser's visit to the home during that part of the appraisal process, what a homeowner can expect and what an agent can expect, and also how an agent can help a homeowner prepare. The information transitions in this presentation from general appraising, things that happen on pretty much every appraisal appointment, and the second half will be relative to things that are specific to an FHA appraisal. Let's start by visiting with the new form that has been created by the Realtor Affiliate Committee of the Cincinnati Area Board of Realtors. And while we're on this slide, I'm going to hesitate here for a little bit in case you would like to open up a new tab log in as a member, and you can follow the instructions on this slide to get you down to find the form, which is called the Appraiser Property Visit Preparation Form. And the reason you might want to bring that up is it will allow you to enter questions on the webinar today, which Phil and I will try to handle as we go, or stop at the end to answer those questions. And I should mention, as we're early in the presentation, that I apologize ahead of time that I have a little cold. There might be a little throat clearing in this presentation, so my apologies on that ahead of time. And secondly, I wanted to mention at this point, and this will be repeated in a slide later as a reminder, the concept that we try to employ here with the Property Appraiser Visit Preparation Form and the PowerPoint we're presenting today were completed with the objective that they can be used in multiple ways. The Property Appraiser Visit Preparation Form should be helpful to agents and a very nice tool to share with the homeowner. It will help them to have a full understanding of what to expect when the appraiser visits the house. That form is also a great conversation starter if you'd like to have an appraiser come out to a sales meeting or to an office meeting for conversation about what we do in the field. And similarly, the PowerPoint has been developed with hope that any appraiser that you're comfortable having come in your office can present this for you and review the slides, and we'll have, because this is what your appraisers do all day long every day. There's not things here that are different for appraisers, so we would be comfortable coming to your office and having this conversation with your staff. So I'm going to move forward at this point. What you see here is the top of the appraiser property visit preparation form, and it's been developed to provide homeowners and agents with a guide to understanding what takes place when an appraiser visits a property. It is intended to serve as a general guide covering routine and many situations, but please understand it is no way that any checklist can encompass everything that happens when we are out in the field. There are certainly twists and turns to our adventures in homes that come up from time to time. Phil, does the mortgage underwriter at times have input on what is required of the appraiser?
Absolutely. It's sometimes a little bit of a surprise or an issue when you get an appraisal back and you see it and the appraiser's noted some condition issues, for instance, and then the underwriter comes back and notes some other condition issues they saw in the photos in the appraisal. So the underwriter does have that kind of freedom to call things out that they see as they see them. So the photos can certainly bring that to light. You need to watch out for that sometimes.
And as the form is built, we decided on two code words that you'll see on the next slide. One is R for required. That means that on the type of appraisal, which you'll see on the next slide, that is something the appraiser must do. D is for discretion. There are items that are required in certain types of appraisal that might be discretionary in other types of appraisal reports. The form lists across the top the four most common types of mortgages that are used to fund purchase transactions, and also to the left runs down a list of things that you could describe as appraiser activities, what we do when we're in the field. I'm not going to review each line at this point in the presentation because some of these things are repeated in the slides that are upcoming. But to give you the basis of how to use this form with a homeowner, or again to open conversation in a sales meeting, if you look at the conventional column, you can see there are less R's in that column than any of the R's or the required items as you go across the page. FHA and rural housing have equal requirements. Rural housing loans are done to FHA standards, and those are pretty much the most restrictive or the highest level of requirements. So when we get into the FHA part of the presentation, you'll see that those requirements are increased and include a few things that are not in a normal conventional appraisal environment. Let's start here. What is required for nearly every standard mortgage loan appraisal? Are there things that might help a homeowner feel prepared to have the appraiser visit? One of the things that occasionally surprises a homeowner is that the appraiser must have access to the entire property. We sign a certification that states we've seen all rooms, areas, and fully viewed all the buildings on site, so it's important to your appraiser to have full access. And as you can see with the watchdog in the image, occasionally a homeowner wants to isolate a room or a portion of the home, to put away Fido or any other type of pet that might be hazardous to the appraiser. While we truly appreciate being protected from an animal that might be aggressive, that is not going to work on an appraisal appointment. So it would be helpful if the homeowners were made aware that the appraiser has to be in the basement. We have to be in all the bedrooms. We're going to be every place in that house while we are there. We do have occasional issues with sleeping children, and that is something that also is a challenge for the appraiser. And I will share with you that I think most appraisers have a tiny bit of room for judgment. Not that we will not enter that room, but we might, in a house where we're not nervous about the property condition in any other way, we might be able to live with just a crack of the door so we can say we've seen it rather than turning on the light and having full access to that particular room. Another item that Phil just talked a little bit about that can really startle homeowners, but it's an important thing in an appraisal today, is that we take a lot of photographs while we're on an appraisal appointment. Appraisers will often, when scheduling, at least warn the homeowner that we'll be taking photographs. Helpful, again, if you have the chance to interact with the homeowner about what we're going to do to inform them that photos are required. The minimum pictures taken for a lending appraisal are going to be the kitchen, all bathrooms, an example of the living area, and any features we say are especially good or are especially bad. Some lenders have increased photo requirements, including FHA. Some lenders will require a photograph of every room. FHA photos require all bedrooms. The appraisers may also take photos of areas like the basement, inside the garage, different things along that line. And the pictures at the bottom demonstrate a couple of the range of things that we're trying to document in photographs. As you look at the kitchen, the proud homeowner has the beautiful updated kitchen. It's very comfortable when my camera comes out. But for the person who doesn't keep their house well, or where we're documenting structural settlements, such as in the bottom right-hand corner, that's a much less comfortable position for a homeowner if they're not aware that the appraiser is required to take pictures. A lot of photographs taken on our appraisal reports. Property condition is another area of discomfort when there's a lack of understanding about the appraiser's role in the field. There are a series of certifications on the Fannie and Freddie appraisal forms that call for a clear and honest description of the property condition. That includes the good and the bad. And condition is going to be clearly documented by the appraiser in photographs. One of the lenders I work with had a recent memo that came out and said, no matter what else you do in the field, you cannot take too many photos, encouraging a lot of documentation of what we see. And again, coming across the bottom at the images in the PowerPoint, there's beautiful new siding is important to value, but there's also worn and weathered siding. There's beautiful new roofs, and there's also old roofs. And of course, these photographs include the interior of the home. And recognize with your appraiser professionals out here that property condition can swing the value dramatically. One of the keys to the thought process of a buyer is how much money am I going to have to spend to comfortably settle into this home? It's called anticipated cost of ownership. So when someone sees that worn siding or worn roof, the property value is less, as the buyer has to account for the cost to update that property. Phil, how does property condition affect the ability for someone to get their mortgage loan?
Well, absolutely. The lenders are going to be looking for property condition issues that may, add to the borrower's ownership costs that may add to what's coming up on the property. We always pay attention to that. I mean, there's no way around it. So as Steve was mentioning, we're certainly going to be looking at those photos and looking to those photos to understand exactly what we're dealing with for our collateral.
Condition can affect the ability of a property to serve as collateral. Along the line of things that appraisers are required to do when we're in the field is to get a good sense or good knowledge of the yard and of the structures. It is very common for an appraiser to arrive at a property where you've got an outbuilding, such as you see in the top right-hand corner of the page, and not have access arranged to get into that building. And again, that's not an okay stop for the appraiser, we are required to take a look at that and know what's inside. If no one's home and I look at that building, I have no idea if there's an apartment on the second floor, if there's not a second floor there and it's just a facade, or what's in there. So being aware and helping the homeowner be aware that we must enter those outbuildings and structures will make the appraisal process go much smoother. If there's a pond out in the back of the lot that's not visible from the area around the house, hopefully the appraiser will find it, but instructions from a homeowner or the real estate agent to let us know that we need to venture into the woods a little bit on that stop might be important. Is while we are required to view the grounds and enter the buildings, there are many times when an appraiser may choose not to effectively walk the 5 or 10 acre tract of ground. Without the ability of the owner's golf cart and knowing where the property lines are, we will get a sense for the property from the aerial images on the auditor sites or that our MLS provides us. We'll look around in the area of the buildings, but if there are things that are away from the main structures that are important for the appraiser to see, that's great information to share at that point in the process. And I skipped over this before, but we'll pose a question for you. Do you know if the homeowner should or should not be at the house when the appraiser comes? The answer to that is it's pretty much a neutral decision. I often have real estate agents encourage the homeowner to leave because on showings they're asked to not be there to give freedom to a prospective buyer. The appraiser is at work or at the house, so the homeowner is welcome to be there. And at times they can provide information to us. So there's no reason that they necessarily have to vacate the house if the appraiser is coming on that particular day. An ongoing issue in scheduling appraisals, especially with the high level of foreclosures over the last decade, is the requirement of many lenders that the utilities be on and working when the appraiser visits the home. An important thing to note is this is not a requirement of the GSEs. Fannie and Freddie are not the requiring entity in this particular case. It is a requirement of HUD. So if it's an FHA appraisal, there are exceptions, but not many on FHA where the utilities may not be operating when we go. In any event, many conventional lenders add in this requirement. And when the appraiser visits the property, to clarify, we are just simply turning on the water, flipping lights on and off, doing a cursory overview just to acknowledge whether or not the utilities appear to be on and working. This is not exhaustive testing, but then we are required, even for a GSE appraisal where the utilities are not a requirement, we are required to note on that appraisal report that they were turned off or that they were on and working when we visit the property. Why that is an important consideration in scheduling with your appraiser is it is very common, a fairly high percentage of the times when I note that the utilities were turned off at the time of the inspection, my appraisal assumes that they are in working order, that a lender may call for the appraiser to go back out to confirm that they are in fact in working order. And that is not a free visit to the property, so it does cost the consumer money if we have to go out a second time to visit that property. So it's an important thing to consider, and if you know that the utilities are going to be on for certain periods of time, try to work with the appraiser to coordinate the appointment when they will be on and working. Here's an FAQ just kind of tossed in here because it deals a little bit with the topic today, and that is the classic, can the real estate agent and the appraiser talk? The key answer to that is that during the development of the appraisal, from the time the appraiser receives the order until the report is turned into the lender, the lines of communication are open. They are limited only to information exchange. The laws, appraisal independence requirements, lender requirements, all frown on bribery, coercion, all those kind of things that might go beyond information exchange, but making sure that the appraiser knows everything that they can possibly know while they are working on that appraisal is a perfectly appropriate type of communication. It is not mandatory that you meet the appraiser at the house, but if you don't meet the appraiser at the house, consider providing any information that's critical during that process. Phil, once the report is turned into the lender, do the communication rules on the appraisal change?
Well, the lender is allowed to communicate with the appraiser, but the loan officer is not. So if I, as a loan officer, need a message to get through to the appraiser, that's something that I would communicate through a processor or my underwriter. So if you have, for instance, a value change request or something like that, the channels have changed significantly on that. We can no longer just pick up the phone and call our appraiser. industry standard these days.
For the real estate agent, recognize that when the communication goes beyond the information exchange, here are comparables I study, here are things that have been changed to the house, that communication is going to be directed through the lender as well. That is the more edgy questions where there's a concern expressed or something that you're worried about or discomfort with something in the dialogue with the appraiser. Those are all going to have to go through very formal channels. But up until that point where we're just trading off information, I think most appraisers will be happy to listen to what you've got to say or receive the information that you have. A little confusion on that point in our industry, and that leads us to the next slide, which is appraisers are required to obtain information on the history of updates to the subject property. Studying history may lead to new insights, as it says at the top of the slide. And the important part for you to consider there is back to that anticipated cost of ownership. A buyer is concerned with the age of components of a home, as it will help them to determine what it's going to cost them to own that home over the next few years. If a house already has a brand new kitchen, already has a brand new roof, and has some significant and costly updates, a buyer is normally willing to pay more for that house, and it affects value, so it's important to your appraiser. Flipping it around, if there are antiquated components to the house or significant repairs necessary, buyers are going to want to pay less for that house. So providing or working with your appraiser to have this information is a critical step in helping the appraiser to properly value the property. On the industry standard appraisal forms that nearly every mortgage loan appraisal is completed on right now, there is a required comment section where we talk about updates to the house. On that drop-down menu built into the GSE appraisal forms, which are also used by FHA, VA, USDA, there is a question section that asks us about updates or remodeling to the kitchen and or the bathrooms within the past 15 years. Updates in GSE terminology means it has not been gutted and replaced, but it's been updated, new counters and appliances rather than a whole new kitchen. Remodeling is the term they use for gutting the room and pretty much replacing that room altogether. So if we know that the kitchen's been done within the 5 to 10 previous years, that's a consideration for us in understanding the value, and it helps us to provide the information that is required by the lender. Updates are important value consideration, and consider, this is not readily available, but through your appraiser friends that you work with, consider asking for and using the OCAP, the Ohio Coalition of Appraisal Professionals, property questionnaire. It was developed to obtain this type of information and ask questions that specifically correspond with the questions that are on the appraisal form. Moving to FHA, HUD appraisals are a little different than a conventional appraisal. They focus heavily on safety, soundness, and security in order to preserve the marketability and protect the health and safety of the occupant. That is not to say that the conventional lending market doesn't have those same concerns. It's just a much higher level of focus placed on an FHA appraisal. The photo and property visit requirements are increased in an appraisal that's completed for HUD. The key terms that HUD has utilized in revising the HUD handbook is that the appraiser is asked to observe, analyze, and report not just on the value of the property, but on the physical characteristics that we see when we are visiting that property on the date of the appraisal. The appraiser does not, and this is clearly written out in FHA's classes on the appraisal side, we do not inspect or test. It is problematic that we turn the furnace on or the air conditioning on, run the water, flush the toilets, many things along that line, because it creates the incorrect impression of inspecting. That enhances the importance of educating the buyer on the importance of a whole house inspection. There's a significant different degree in me making casual observations of what appears to be working and doesn't as I walk through the house, as opposed to the exhaustive testing that's completed by a whole house inspector. Utilities and appliances, with few exceptions, utilities are required to be on and working when the appraiser visits the property for an FHA appraisal. The exception comes in play at the underwriter level, not at the appraiser level. So if the utilities are off when we are there, it's an automatic notation and call that the lender needs to confirm that the utilities are on and working. I don't think it happens often, but I do understand that the underwriter has the ability to accept an alternate source from time to time, such as a recently completed whole house inspection to confirm that those utilities are in working order. But it is most common that they will ask the appraiser to do a return visit. To confirm operation of the utilities, again, we are required to check at least one electric outlet per room. We turn lights on and off, operate the faucets, flush commodes, operate the seasonal HVAC system, run the water until hot, and so on. We're trying again to do a cursory overview of the property, not exhaustive or technical testing. The activity that the appraiser has at the house does not warrant future operation, but it allows the appraiser to state the observation at the time of the property visit that we can comfortably state in writing on that appraisal form that the utilities were on and working at the time of the property visit. Appliances is a new twist for your appraisers. FHA now requires all conveyed appliances to be on and working at the time of the property visit. The appraiser will observe conveyed appliances by turning them on and off or checking to see if they operate. Conveyed appliances include the old refrigerator sitting in the corner of the basement, the stove sitting in the garage. If it's included in the sales contract, the current phraseology in FHA requirements is conveyed. So if it's included with the sale of the property, it's something that the appraiser is going to be checking to see if it's working. I can tell you at this point, I do not know if there are consequences to any of the appliances not being operational. Phil, has this come up yet in your office? Is there any consequence if an appliance happens to not be working when the appraiser visits the property?
I haven't seen it recently. I have seen some cases where we had an inoperative stove, but that was a while ago, and I think it was noted in the contract, which is why it seemed to stand out to us. But no, I really haven't seen it come up.
We'll see how well this one plays out. Again, it's a new requirement from FHA. It's a little bit of a twist, and for appraisers, it's a few new things to learn. Trying to figure out how to turn everybody's old stove on and off is not something that I necessarily know at this point in my career. The most common work order in FHA appraising has been top of the list for an indefinite period of time, and that, of course, is the chipped and peeling paint that we come by. FHA requires in any home built in 1978 or before that there be zero chipped or peeling paint on that property. FHA requires loose paint to be removed, paint chips removed from the site, and the surface to be encapsulated with fresh paint to stop further deterioration. Additions that are post 1978, sheds or porches built recently, other items added to the property after 1978 are not exempted from this rule. So if you have a 20-year-old shed in the backyard and the paint is peeling all over the place, it unfortunately is still a work order from FHA's standpoint. And keep in mind as you counsel people on this, it's the paint chips that they are worried about. So the paint chips have to be removed from the site. For homes built after 1978, peeling paint is treated as a component of condition or deferred maintenance, and it impacts value, but it's not an automatic work order. How can you help? Educate the seller. If a sale is likely to require FHA financing, or if you're under contract for an FHA loan, explain the paint requirements so the work can be completed properly. If it's ahead of the game before the appraiser ever comes out, or if it's during the process, it's helpful for the owner to fully understand the scope that was on the prior slide, because if they scrape that shed and all the paint chips are laying in the mulch when I come back for the inspection, that does not satisfy HUD's requirement. And remember, this is HUD's requirement. Your appraiser ultimately is not supposed to make any judgment at all in this particular case. It's either chipped and peeling paint or not. There's no minimum or de minimis. And as you can see going across the bottom photos on this slide, peeling paint on an old stone foundation wall or up above the electric on a basement ceiling is not an easy thing to correct. It can be quite a responsibility and quite a big amount of work. And the photo on the right shows the paint chips laying on the sidewalk. That's a no-no. Those need to be swept up and removed from the site before I come back out for the follow-up inspection. Other common issues, repairs required, include safety or health concerns. Some level of judgment is employed by the appraiser to visually see or to focus in on things where we're at the house that might cause a safety or health concern, such as hand or safety rails. If you look at the photograph on the bottom left-hand corner, that's a raised porch. It has a nice secure handrail, but it does not have a safety rail. That's a 2.5 or 3 foot raised porch, so there would be a safety issue if someone were to get to the side and fall off. Looking at the top center photo, it's a little hard to see. I hope it's clear on your end. There's a big chunk of the concrete out in the middle of the main step there where you step up to the landing stair before turning left to go up. That would be, as would the concrete sidewalk down at the bottom, those would be routine trip hazards, safety issues that have to be corrected for an FHA loan. Handrails are no longer required. It used to be an automatic 3 risers, and then it was required, but they are required in any case when the appraiser's observation while we visit the property that it could be a safety issue that that handrail is not there. So looking at the open stairway, you can see the blue tape. It looks like they're trying to put a handrail in that picture, but at the moment, there's nothing to hang on to while you negotiate those stairs. And of course, things when we see things that could be mold growing in drywall or in the paneling in the basement, those are going to be automatic inspection requirements. We're going to pass that on to an expert to see if that really is a hazardous type of mold that needs to be removed. Appraisers will look for other obvious issues, again, not exhaustive testing, but as you can see in the series of photographs, often there are very key visual indications that some type of repair or some type of inspection might be necessary. You see multiple photographs on this page of electric that's not safe, and frayed wiring is an automatic inspection or repair requirement. Knob and tube, as you see in the bottom photo, is not disallowed in and of itself, but it's an antiquated electrical service, makes appraisers and lenders nervous. If there's a lot of it, it might be an inspection requirement to make sure that it's still safe. And if it's frayed, as you see in that picture, it might be an inspection and a follow-up repair that's going to take place. When you see the bucket under the sink, that's usually a hint to the appraiser. There might be a little leaking plumbing, and you can't have any leaking plumbing under your sink on an FHA loan, or that's a little hard to see in that commode photo, but there's water all over the floor by the commode. So we're looking for obvious issues that might affect the health, safety, and soundness of the occupant of that property, and those can become work orders for FHA. FHA has some new photo requirements with the 4000.1. Interesting on condominiums that they want photographs of the pool, the clubhouse, common grounds, other features that are used in common. Getting a picture of the ground level clubhouse, as you see in the middle picture, or things that are easily accessible will not pose any unusual hardship or difficulties. A little concerned about trying to get a pool picture in the middle of the summer when it's in use. But getting to something like that rooftop terrace that you see in the bottom left-hand picture could pose some interesting challenges for your appraisers. Similarly, FHA has asked for photos to be included of common areas in 2 to 4 families. I did not have a picture of a hall, but the halls, the things that are used in common, like the hall, the basement, garages, mechanical or laundry areas, are now a photo requirement. In addition to, on a small multifamily, every kitchen, bathroom, and a few miscellaneous living area pictures are the minimum requirements. And we have, and FHA does have a photo requirement for all bedrooms, by the way, so that's something as well. How can you help with this particular issue of photos? Inform the seller of this requirement so they will be cooperative with the appraiser to get to the things that might be secured. Or when scheduling a condominium appraisal, be sure to inform the appraiser as special access is required. And again, it's not too tricky to get to the ground level common facilities, playgrounds, and pools, but there could be a whole different degree of difficulty with the exercise room in a high-rise condominium. One of the changes or differences is not a new requirement for FHA, but it is a different thing from how it's handled on conventional appraisals, is that we must view the attic. It's a requirement, and it's also to be accompanied by at least one attic photo. That's the documentation of what that attic looked like for the use of FHA or USDA. At minimum, the appraiser must be able to view the attic from the access panel. But it is quite possible, depending on the attic, the way it's arranged, if it's well lighted and has flooring, that the appraiser may enter the attic. FHA would prefer we enter the attic, but there's a lot of attics where it's not safe for the appraiser because of the way the roof system is structured. There's not a floor. We don't want to come on through if we miss one of those rafters while we're crawling around, where the viewing will take place from the access panel, the drop stair, or the scuttle. But again, there certainly will be cases where the appraiser enters the attic if there's a good way to get around up there to try to see around a bend to make sure we've seen the underside of the roofing and how the insulation is set up. We're required to view the attic to be sure it is free of debris or safety hazards and appears to be dry. You see all kinds of things in attics. The best way that you can help the appraiser or help the homeowner understand this is to be sure that they are aware. It's kind of a quirky thing. It's not a whole lot of people who come to your house and get in your attic. And as you can see in the bottom left-hand picture, closets are not designed for appraiser entry. So if the homeowner knows ahead of time, they might be able to provide clear passage and at least move personal things out of the way wherever the scuttle may be located so the appraiser can have access. If you can convince them to open the panel and put a nice big ladder like you see in the middle picture there, your appraisers will love you. It'd be nice to have that set up for us. Doesn't happen much, but it does on occasion. And as you can see in the right, you do see a lot of things in attics, not as dramatic, I guess relatively rare to find a problem in an attic, but you do see things from time to time that would require an inspection or a repair. We also are required, appraisers are required to view the interior of the crawl space. At minimum, the appraiser must be able to view the crawl space from the access panel. If possible, the appraiser may enter the crawl space, and FHA requires the appraiser to view this area to be sure it's properly vented. We're going to be looking at the side walls to make sure air passage is proper, because that's what helps the crawl space to breathe, if you will, and to dry out between rain. Make sure that it's generally dry. I want to see a lot of puddles or water in there, and free from evidence of vermin or sediment. Looking inside the crawl space, we're looking at the foundation walls just like we would the basement walls when we are in a house with a regular basement. How can you help? The homeowner would benefit from knowing that this requirement exists. They can remove obstructions. It sounds a little crazy, but people don't get in their crawl space as much, so they will screw the access panel closed or block things off to where we can't get in. Appraisers in general do not carry power tools, so if there's a bunch of drywall screws holding on a panel, that may result in a follow-up visit by the appraiser, which again is going to cost somebody money for our time to come back out. So if they do have the crawl space secured, it's helpful if they loosen the cover or allow us access to get in. And going across the bottom of the things we're looking for, the one on the left is probably about what most crawl spaces look like, but if we do see mud and we can't get in very far, that's going to be a bring in an expert type of stop. An appraiser is going to call for some type of a crawl space inspection to get an expert in there to see why that water is there, as would be the same result on the one on the right. Not as yucky in that crawl space, doesn't have cobwebs, but there's a lot of water in there. The crawl space in the middle is a beautiful crawl space, and that's what appraisers hope to see. It's well lighted, it's dry, it's got a vapor barrier. So that's what we hope to see, but we only see one like that every once in a while. Winding down today's presentation, again, a reminder that this was developed in a way that we hope is useful. The form can be used with homeowners or for agent conversation. The PowerPoint is available through Amanda. Amanda Wilson is the staff liaison between the Realtor Affiliate Committee and you and I, and she will make sure that we match up an appraiser to come speak if you'd like one at your office, or that you have easy access to this information. The form is on the CABR website. The PowerPoint is available for your use. And I want to extend thanks to a couple of folks here. This is my first year on the Realtor Affiliate Committee, and as I said before, it's been a really, really neat experience. So thank you to all the members of the Affiliate Committee. There were several that helped in the development of today's presentation. There were several local appraisers that helped with the information that you viewed today. Maybe a little too many to name, but as the saying goes, you know who you are and your help was appreciated. Phil has joined me today. That was a pleasant surprise. He's the webinar chair and was also integral in creating the development of the property visit form. So special thanks to Phil for great energy and great effort on this committee and leading the webinars. Chris Cooper and Nick Perino, our fearless leaders of the Realtor Affiliate Committee this year, constant supporters of everything that we do. Again, just been a neat experience. I'm looking over the question thing here and I don't see any have popped in. So I think we can wind things down here. This webinar has been brought to you by the Realtor Affiliate Committee of the Cincinnati Board of Realtors. Staff Liaison Amanda Wilson will forward any remaining questions to Phil and I. If we can answer anything for you, we would be happy to. And thanks for joining us. Phil, thanks for being here again today.
Steve, thank you. Nice work on the webinar.